What's up, dudes and dudes in the internet? My name's Seth, and we have back again with some more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about the Ice Age. This is going to be the definitive video since the class has actually gotten its last full-on upgrade. The class has been completely overhauled, completely buffed. It is not going to end up being the top tank in the game anymore, guys and gals. That is to say, it's not a tank in any way, shape, or form because of the way that they ended up overhauling the class. Now, what we're going to be talking about first and foremost is each and every stat that they ended up actually changing about the class, because I know that you guys have been curious and asking me about. But then on top of it, we're going to be going into Ultra Shadow Towers. I'm going to show you how powerful the character can end up actually being if you're at the end game. Now, granted, I do have perfect gems, but I do not have a perfect class gem. That is to say, I don't have the stats like rolled over to being absolutely godlike perfect that we can end up getting. But ideally, the best stats that you're aiming for in the entire game is 125k for your base magic attack. And then, of course, obviously, 100% crit hit. And, well, anything above that, you can just end up rolling to max health. And then crit damage, I like to go for usually 1.7 thousand for your crit damage. And ultimately, that's going to end up being the strongest you can be in the game. There's a couple little things that you could change by that point. And even if you don't end up getting 100% rolled towards that specific build, it's perfectly fine. Because the only difference in your damage at this point in the game is 1,000 to maybe 10,000 extra damage, which doesn't really make that much of a difference when you're in like the Ultra Towers and stuff like that anyways, right? Because it's going to end up being scaled down. So let me actually get the post so we can take a quick peek at all of the stats that we got on this guy. Oh, and then later in the video, I'll also show you what he's like in U9. Honestly, not really as fast as the Ice Age used to be, but still completely viable. Also, yes, I've been chewing gum in my videos lately just because of the simple fact that my throat gets really parched lately. I think I'm still a little bit under the weather. So anyways, the big things that they ended up changing with the character is obviously you can see down at the bottom, our ultimate ability has actually been swapped with our number one. Ooh, that gives me the chills. Yes, that's a weird pun. So anyways, let's talk about your basic attack. The basic attack has been increased to a coefficient of 2.5. From what, I guess just one, honestly, I don't know. The projectile size itself has been increased by 100%. So you would actually do 0.25 size of a block. Now you actually do 0.50 size of a block. So roughly half of one full block is how big your basic attack is going to end up being now. The Ice Crash, which is just going to end up being your big ol' right click right here. The damage of the Ice Crash has been increased to 6.0 instead of who knows what. Energy cost has been reduced from 20 to 15. Ice Crash now chills enemies like your basic attack, slowing their movement speed for 3.5 seconds, which means that this is in fact something that you can stack on Titan bosses. How cool is that, right? I'm going to be saying that a whole lot because of all the Ice Age cold puns, right? Ice Crash will now also attempt to freeze lava blocks, creating water in the process. So if you end up actually using this on lava blocks, it will turn them to water, and then I'm pretty sure after a few seconds they end up swapping back just to the normal old lava blocks, right? So the Big Chill, which is going to end up being your number one, which is cast way more often now, guys. The Big Chill has been moved to the number one ability and has been replaced by Frozen Ward as the Ice Age's ultimate ability. So they're just saying that they swapped them around, right? Enemies frozen no longer delay damage, but take damage immediately. So this was one of the biggest reasons why using Ice Age in U9 was not really that good, because you would end up using your freeze, it would freeze all the enemies, and it would be really annoying for farming with people because everyone would be trying to kill the boss and it would just be sitting there frozen in time. Even if it was already dead, it would just be sitting there waiting for the ability to end up coming out, you know, for them to unfreeze, then they would end up dying. So now they've actually changed that so you can just outright kill it while it's still frozen. So that's really good. They also changed it so it now lasts 3.5 seconds. I don't know what it used to last. It costs 40 energy, which the energy amount doesn't really matter, honestly speaking. It also now has a 7-second cooldown as opposed to what? I don't remember. Enemies now take damage over time while frozen as well, so it's a little bit more to your coefficient. Initial damage has been upped to 3.0. Okay. DOT damage, which is damage over time, has been upped to 0.66. Again, I don't know what the base was, so can't really reference. And the Big Chill has a critical of 0.5. Like, they're giving us all the numbers, but they're not really giving us all the numbers that count. You know what I mean? So Frozen Ward, which is going to end up being your new ultimate ability, which is going to last 5 seconds and cost 55 energy. There's actually been a couple fixes to this, so it actually lasts like 6 seconds and costs a little bit less energy. The cooldown has also been reduced to around like, what was that, 24 seconds instead of the original post it was going to be 30 seconds. So it's nice that we've seen a change to it. It also absorbs damage received so long as the damage is greater than 50% of your HP, which means absolutely everything. Frozen Ward's movement speed has been increased by 400%. So when you end up using it, you're super duper fast. You can end up kind of using this just for normal old farming and stuff like that, right? Magic damage has been increased by 100% while it's active as well. And then you also end up getting attack speed 400%. So just to give you guys a clue, attack speed in Trove is limited to 300%. That is the absolute maximum attack speed that will affect your character. You can actually see your numbers increase beyond that, but you're not going to see any benefits to it. This is something that caused a lot of weird controversy with the Shadow Hunter back in the day when you ended up gaining its class gem ability for some reason. But just for example, you know, I've got an attack speed of 242, and then we use our ult, and I've got 1,209 for my attack speed, which, I mean, this does not look like 1,000 attack speed, does it? Nuh-uh. So essentially you're going to end up using that ability as much as you can, using it on cooldown. I'll kind of give you the rundown of how you're going to be using this character. There are a couple options for it, but yes, the ability has changed an awful lot since it originally ended up coming out on the class with the update, because it was pretty bad at first. So then the Ice Sages in Power Gem, so the class gem ability is going to end up being completely different. It replaces your current class gem, so you can't go out and farm a second class gem that's going to have another ability like we could with the Fey Trickster's class gem ability. So the ability is going to end up replacing your basic attack now, instead of giving you the shotgun blast. Basic attacks will chill enemies, slowing their movement, like the Ice Sage's other ability now. The Pain Freeze allows Ice Sages to walk across ice without slipping. So that's kind of weird that they ended up actually making it so that it was something related to like the, you know, the classes like class gem, because that was originally something that you could just normally do, was walk across ice, and honestly speaking, it's not really something that's that exciting. But whatever, I guess we'll take it. Targets hit 3 times with the basic attack while using Pain Freeze, which is the class gem, will explode, taking additional damage with a coefficient of 4.5. I guess that just means 4.5 of your normal damage or something like that, right? But it's not really the best. Like, I like it. They did end up making it a lot better, because originally you had to tag the same enemy 3 times in a row. Now they've actually changed it so that you just tag enemies, and every third attack it's just going to end up having the ability go off. I don't remember whether or not they ended up removing, there was an internal cooldown to the ability, so you couldn't just spam it over and over, but I think they got rid of that. Unfortunately though, I personally think that it would be a lot better if it was just every third attack period, the same as the Vanguard's, how the Vanguard ends up working. Because I would, you know, often your shots will end up like registering as they're hitting the ground, despite the fact that they're hitting an enemy, just because the projectile attack is a little bit wonky in this game, right? So the Ice Sage's subclass ability, last but not least, it will now include all tiers of the Ice Sage's subclass shield. I don't necessarily know what they mean by the subclass shield. I guess they're just talking about the ultimate ability itself, or I don't know. But either way, it says incoming damage will be reduced by 10% while your shield is active. Movement speed has been increased by 20. Magic damage is increased by 20%, and attack speed is increased by 20%. I don't know what that even, like, I don't know. That's just, that's a subclass ability. Oh gosh, what am I thinking? That's not his passive ability. I read that wrong. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, that's going to be the subclass ability, and obviously it's going to end up scaling up as you end up using or having a more and more powerful Ice Sage. So that's not too bad that you're going to end up gaining more attack speed and more movement speed so long as the shield is active. Could mean that you could actually use that fairly effectively for farming. That might actually even be the absolute best ability for farming, because if we end up just having the ability, which passively ends up activating over time so long as we don't end up taking damage near as I remember, right? Or does it just randomly end up activating when we're attacking enemies? Increase movement speed while riding ground-based. No. Chance on damage received to activate a shield. Yeah, so we could actually get that to activate, last for 5 seconds, and give us 20 more movement speed on top of our normal speed build. So I gotta definitely try that out. That sounds really, really cool, dude. Seriously. So let's hop into Shadow Towers here just so I can show you guys that you most definitely can end up maining the Ice Sage. Since the update ended up coming out, they also have increased the Ice Sage's attacks just in general by like 5%. So we're even stronger than when the improvements update first ended up coming out. And it's cool that they ended up having that update come out right away, because they did mention, oh, we're going to up the Ice Sage and make him a little bit stronger after the improvements update. And we were all kind of worried, when's that gonna be? A few months from now? So what I usually like to do with the Ice Sage now is just spam your right click whenever you're in like a big herd of enemies, because for the most part, you know, you're going to be using that attack because it's got more AoE and more crowd control than just using your basic attack. That said, if you're just fighting one-on-one or even just using your ult, you're definitely going to want to be using your basic attack, especially because you can end up freezing the enemies. The amount of damage you're going to do is generally going to end up being pretty good. You know, even over like your right click ability. And most of all, you can see just how slow we end up making these guys because of the stacking effect of all of our ice abilities, right? Really, really good. Makes this character extremely potent for groups. It actually makes the class a utility class, which is something that Trove, in all honesty, doesn't really have. So what I like to do in terms of the actual build and flasks, you always gotta use Death Defying when you're in Shadow Towers. I always use Unyielding because you're gonna get one shot by everything. And then if you can sacrifice Sure Strike, I should say. And then Arcane Emblem, and then also Chronomancer Cubesley, obviously to reduce the cooldown of your abilities, which means that we do actually probably have a 30-second cooldown on our ultimate ability. It's just that I'm using Chronomancer. Wow, I'm so good at this game. So if we end up casting our one, cast our ult, use a pot, and then you can see, look at the amount of damage that we're actually doing. I mean, we're getting a little bit of lag right here, but this is insane. This is Ultra Dot right here, man. This is Ultra Dot. And we're just absolutely destroying. Now, a Draco is definitely going to end up doing better for sure. But the fact that we have so much crowd control is really nice. The amount of damage that we're actually doing, not to mention we can just constantly freeze enemies over and over. If you're trying to play this game the lazy way, I would actually recommend that you end up just outright using your basic attack over and over, because there's not really any reason to use your right click outside the fact that it is better for groups. So maybe for a Shadow Arena, I would recommend that you end up using your right click, and then just when you're in normal Shadow Dungeons, you want just that extra damage of actually using your left click attack. So obviously because of this, you're going to want to have all attack speed on the class now. You know, it's just going to end up being that much better for you. So attack speed on everything as your second stat, crit damage fourth stat, because you can end up swapping out that crit damage for movement speed if you need for normal farming and stuff. I have energy regen on my staff because I like using my right click, but I don't think I actually even need energy regen when I'm doing that. And honestly, I think I'm gonna swap that off just to have more crit damage, for the simple fact that we can just be using our basic attack like a crazy person, because I didn't actually know that it was as powerful as it was. So let's hop into U9. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let me swap out my gear here so that we can have some movement speed and try him out at the end game. So you used to actually get quite a bit of movement speed by having your shield activated, which was one of the reasons why the Ice Sage was actually one of the top 5 speed farmers in the game, just because of the fact that you would actually be able to have that barrier up pretty much all the time, because you would be able to one-shot most anything. So you can see right here, we two-shot that elite enemy right there, which is roughly going to end up being the same strength as any of the bosses, which this is where I would recommend using the right click, just because when you're out in the world, you know, your projectile shot can end up being a bit glitchy and not really end up registering on the enemy. So that's what I would recommend, but you can end up doing whatever you want. Of course, you're going to end up swapping Unyielding out for Trailblazing. I always like using Death Defying just because if you get hit, usually you're going to end up gaining one shot And I like using the Knight subclass ability when I'm speed farming, except now I'll be using the Ice Sage one or trying that out because it just gives us more flask capacity, right? But otherwise you could end up swapping it out for, on the Ice Sage anyways, Lunacy, because whenever that triggers, you're going to end up having even more movement speed. But generally speaking, you're not really going to end up being the fastest as this character anymore. Prefect Penguin is also going to end up being the ally you want to use because you're going to end up gaining more magic damage and all of that stuff, obviously. But you gain movement speed when a nearby enemy dies because it's all just about efficiency. It's all about like going through as quickly as possible. So let's just hit that guy and absolutely decimate him using our shield and then popping a flash. You can see we've got some pretty decent movement speed, albeit only for a few seconds. Now, what you can end up doing if you really want to is, or if you're powerful enough, I guess I should say, is you swap out Arcane Emblem. Let me just swap this out right here for the Chrono Emblem, very similar to the build that we actually usually use on the Vanguard. You can also end up swapping Deathifying out to the Conjurer's Vial, I think is the one. Yeah, Conjurer's, which is based on if you end up triggering a Magic Find, you have a chance of actually recovering a flask capacity. As the Ice Sage, though, you're probably going to be able to do this very easily. You don't really need Death-Defying as much as you do with any of the Aura characters, just for the simple fact that you can freeze everything. Like, it's pretty easy to stay alive as the Ice Sage, especially considering you're going to have that ability on cooldown pretty much all the time. And while your shield is up, you're going to have not only increased movement speed, but also have that extra amount of defense. And now, finally, you can freeze a boss and actually kill it while it's still frozen, so you don't gotta worry about that anymore, which actually gives the Ice Sage insane amounts of survivability for the late game and for U9. Like, if you're in U9 and you're not really, you know, you're not really the best, you don't really have any characters that are particularly strong and able to end up like handling the end game, just freeze them, you know, use the Ice Sage over and over. So guys and gals out there, if you guys are curious of whether or not you can end up actually using the Ice Sage at the end game, most definitely you can main the Ice Sage. They ended up doing a very, very big overhaul in the class, and I think it's great what they ended up doing, you know. Like, I think it's really, really awesome that they ended up making the character as powerful as they did. Definitely top tier for Ultra Towers for sure. You know, still not going to end up topping Gunslinger or Draco in terms of just raw power and damage and stuff like that, but very, very close. It's really nice that what they've been doing for rebalancing these classes. However, it does mean that we no longer cry single tier have a character that can end up surviving and tanking out Dread. Now we just don't have anybody that can do it. Unless you just end up using Unyielding and just having a group of people, or, I mean, my Draco causes enough damage that technically I can out-survive Dread and solo it, but it's still very difficult because those lasers that he shoots out are going to one-shot you all the time. But either way, hopefully you found this video helpful, ladies and gents, in deciding not only if you actually wanted to go back to maining the Ice Sage, maybe you used to main it, maybe you don't anymore, maybe you've always wanted to, but it always kind of sucked. Well, now you definitely can use it, and I wanted to show you the different builds and everything that you can end up using with it as well. So I'm definitely going to try out using it as a subclass ability just so we can see just how much movement speed we're gonna get. I'm just a little bit curious here. Let's see if we can end up actually getting this to trigger on one of these enemies and try to actually fly around the environment if we can ever end up getting this to trigger. It'd be nice if the subclass ability would make it so that we could also, like, you know, not mess around on the ice. Like, it would be nice if it would actually make it so that we wouldn't slip. Where is this barrier, dude? It's supposed to be like a chance for it to spawn, but I am not seeing it at all. Dude, seriously. Because it's on damage received, you dummy. While this is probably going to be one of the best, like, videos for you guys to know, like, about the Sage and how you're gonna use it, man alive, I'm messing up a lot today. So there we go. That's roughly, I mean, we don't have our Pyro Disc triggered, but that was pretty decent. I guess it's not really the best for farming. Lunar Lancer's probably still better just for raw movement because of the fact that I didn't know that this triggers on when you receive damage, which if you're in U9, you don't want to receive damage. So maybe that's not as useful as I thought it was. I might just swap all my gems back to Draco before next week. In either case, though, ladies and gents, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Sorry for my scatterbrain of being back and forth and not being 100% sure about some of these things. You gotta understand, I haven't used the Ice Sage in years, dude. Like, seriously. So the fact that they've actually not only changed it But I don't main the Ice Stage in any way, shape, or form. I wanted to swap my gems over to try it out, to get a video out to you guys, and then I'm just going to swap my gems back to the Draco because I still prefer the Draco over the Sage anyways, you know? And I've already got a class that I use for farming and stuff, and well, at least we kind of got to discover it all right here, right now. Thanks for watching, though. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell. And if you want to support me, you can always hit that join button, become a member. You end up getting a unique icon by your name when you comment, as well as you can have custom emotes whenever I'm doing live streams. But then if you also wanted to check out some of my merch, links are down below for that as well. And if you don't have any money, but you still want to help me out, hey, we've got something for you. Check out Gawkbox as well as Solidarity app in the description. That's going to be a free way you can end up receiving sponsorship money for playing phone games, and then you get to send that to me. How cool is that? Thanks for watching, though, everybody. Sayonara and stay epic.